Hey friends, today I'm building an eco-brutalist house for a spellcaster in The Sims 4. Let's check it out. So one of you lovely people suggested building a brutalist home in Glimmerbrook for a spellcaster a while back, and I thought it was a really interesting challenge because I wasn't sure how well a brutalist house would fit into this world. And if you aren't familiar, Glimmerbrook is the world that came with Realm of Magic, which is the game pack that introduced spellcasters. And the build buy in that pack is almost as far away from brutalist design as you can get. So I thought this would be a kind of a fun challenge to take on. And if you aren't familiar with brutalist design, it's a style that really arose after World War II during the reconstruction of the UK and Europe. And you've probably seen brutalist buildings around. They're especially common for government and education buildings like libraries and things like that. And they tend to have a pretty minimalist design. They don't have a lot of ornamentation or anything. And they kind of focus on raw building materials like concrete is very common with them, which I wanted to bring through in this build. However, brutalist design can easily be seen as cold or like almost joyless, if that makes sense. So I went in more of like an eco or modern direction with it and incorporated a lot of warm wood tones throughout and tons of greenery, which I think made the house feel much more comfortable and also blend into the world more. And since brutalist design can be very boxy and square, I wanted to have some fun with that. So when I was looking for inspiration, I came across this photo. I'm not exactly sure where this is. I'll put a photo in here for you to see. But I really liked how dynamic it was and like how many different kind of outcroppings there were of the building. So I used that as inspiration to lay out the house, if you will. And that ended up making the house quite a bit bigger than I was expecting. So this took me quite a while to get done. Plus, I just haven't really built a lot of things in, kind of a brutalist design. So yeah, it was a bit of a learning curve as well. And yeah, like I said, I wanted to do, it more in kind of like an eco direction, eco vibe, I guess. So I did these sort of living roofs for the house, which I think really helped to, kind of blend it into the world and make it feel a little bit more comfortable, like someone would actually want to live in this house and it's not just a big concrete box. I also ended up using a lot of the windows and doors from the new businesses and hobbies pack, just because it had this sort of more modern and kind of industrial mix to them, which I think suited the house really well. And honestly, laying out all of the windows was a little bit of a challenge, just since I wanted to make sure that they made sense. They, kind of felt a little bit more modern. So I ended up putting a lot of windows on the corners, which I thought felt very modern. It kind of worked well with some of the other inspiration photos that I had seen. And I used a few different types of windows, like a lot of these like square ones with the kind of cross hatching, I guess. I'm not really sure what you call that with like the frame. But then also like smaller ones that I stacked together, wide ones that I put together. So yeah, I was just trying to like mix up how the windows looked in here. And I think it turned out pretty well. You'll have to let me know what you think for sure. But yeah, I think just kind of playing around with all of the different sizes of windows really helped with this one. And in that main inspiration photo that I showed, there's this sort of part where part of the building is kind of covering another part. Like there's this like open area that's kind of sheltered by other parts of the building. So I wanted to bring that through with the ground floor. So you enter the house through the living area where the stairs are. And then the other part is a kitchen dining area with like a small powder room, bathroom on the first floor. Because I wanted to make sure that I had a restroom down there. Yeah, and I just really liked having this sort of open area in between, which I will kind of like fence in a little bit later on. And at this point where I've kind of jumped ahead a little bit, I kind of faded in, I've made some changes to the build. I did quite a bit off camera to try and figure out the furnishings and kind of the layout of everything. So that's kind of why I waited a couple seconds there so you can kind of take a look at it. But yeah, I moved the stairs a little bit, and I've basically picked out all of the furniture, and I'm just kind of placing it back in. Yeah, this build was a little bit of a challenge for me, so I don't know, doing it this way really helped, and it definitely made the editing of the video a lot easier, so I wasn't constantly cutting at all of my very long decision points. So yeah, I think this worked out quite a bit better. Here in the kitchen, I ended up using the cabinets and counters and everything from Home Chef Hustle, just because it had this really great, like, I don't think it's granite, it's like some sort of stone countertop that kind of waterfalls over the edge there. And I thought that worked really well, and this color, you know, kind of blended in. It almost has a sort of concrete look to it, but there's like a little bit of wood tone in there, so it's not, you know, quite as cold as it could be. It's not a very like rich wood tone, but I think it, you know, helps a little bit at least. But I mostly wanted this one for the countertop. I thought this kind of speckled look really fit in well. It looks like something that would be in a brutalist house like this. I also ended up using a lot of these like fatigue rugs that you would have in usually like a commercial business or something for standing on. Obviously it doesn't make, you know, it doesn't do anything in the game. But I thought, you know, since all of the floors are concrete, they would have more of these just to, you know, make your feet not hurt so bad from standing on it for an extended period of time. So I actually use those in another space as well. But yeah, and for this living area, I struggled a bit because at first I was going to have like a TV and everything in this room. But I don't know, it just wasn't really looking quite right. Like, I don't know, I couldn't get it to look right with the fireplace that I ended up going with. So I ended up doing the actual like TV area upstairs. Worked out well because I had a really awkward space to use. So downstairs where this fireplace is, I found, or I used this really great bookshelf from, I think, City Living. And then I kind of mix and matched the couches and chairs and stuff in this build. And I think that worked out pretty well. So this is more of like a sitting area, reading area, which I think worked really nicely. And I used the fireplace from Snowy Escape, which I thought worked really well since it's basically concrete. I thought that made a lot of sense. I also tried to use a lot more higher end finishes for this build, which I think really worked well in this sort of design. Like a lot of the things from the refined living room kit helped a lot in this build. I don't know, something about like the brutalist design I think really works well with a more high-end finish. I think it helps to make it not feel so cold or like Soviet maybe, because I think a lot of people will think of like Soviet housing as being like with brutalist design. It's very, very synonymous. So I thought going in a more high-end direction would also help make this feel a little bit more like a, I don't know, a nicer house for sure, and just kind of something that someone would actually, you know, really enjoy living in. And when it comes to design in general, I really love contrast, like different colors, different textures, patterns, things like that. So I thought using the warm wood tone and the greenery contrasting with the concrete, it worked really well for me. Like I could almost see myself living in a house like this, even though I'm not the biggest fan of brutalism personally. I think it, yeah, like, you know, it can feel very cold and I don't know, not very, I don't know, comfortable really, just like concrete everywhere. But I think using all of these different textures and colors really kind of fought against that. So, you know, if someone wanted to give me a brutalist house like this, I would be more than happy to live in it. And the house could technically have 4 bedrooms. I only furnished 2 of them as bedrooms, like the really large primary bedroom on the second floor which I think has like a lot of really great furnishings in it. I was able to find quite a few pieces that I think work nicely. And then there's a bedroom on the 3rd floor. But then the other 2 potential bedrooms, I do a sort of like magic room for the spellcaster with like a cauldron and all of that. And then basically almost like a workshop. Like I've got the pottery wheel, I've got the crystal table, like a woodworking bench. So there's a lot of space there for kind of more creative things. Because I was kind of thinking this spellcaster, maybe they make most of their money from doing like creative projects, and that's how they can afford such a nice house like this. So that's kind of the direction that I went there. But if you didn't want to play in this house as a spellcaster, you could easily turn at least that bedroom into a regular bedroom. You could get rid of the workshop, kind of go from there. So yeah. And I'm not sure if I really showed it, but I also rotated the house on the lot. Mostly because the front was like where this bathroom was facing the front, and I don't know, it just didn't look very good that way. So I ended up rotating it, and I think this looked a lot better like when it was finished. I think there's just like more windows on the front and everything. I think it just worked a lot better. I also kind of reoriented the door in the living room. Since I had moved the stairs more toward the middle of the room, which I think also worked a lot better. But yeah, here on the 3rd floor, I'm kind of doing this 2nd bedroom. So there are, 2 fully furnished bedrooms. If you want to have multiple Sims living here, this will be on the gallery if you'd like to download it. And yeah, I was kind of struggling on what to put in this room since it's basically just another almost primary bedroom. But I put in one of these kind of like chaise lounges. I thought that was kind of nice. Like you could sit in and look out the window. And the space that I had for the bathroom was a little awkward. So I ended up doing like a separate toilet room, which I think would be nice, especially if you end up turning any of these other rooms into bedrooms as well. And you have multiple Sims who need to use this bathroom. You can, have someone shower and use the toilet at the same time without any issues. So I thought that was kind of nice to have. And yeah, for this workshop, it's just got like a lot of different things in here. Like I mentioned, like the whole pottery stuff, like everything from businesses and hobbies that you need to create pottery. It's got the work table from Crystal Creations. It's got the newer workbench from the Artist Studio Kit, I think this is what it's called. And I also put in some of the like finished pottery items in shelves here, along with a bunch of different crystals throughout, just so you've got some of that stuff if you want to create different jewelry and things like that. And for this spellcaster room, I also did some shelving in here with more crystals. I also put in some of these orbs, which I'm not actually sure what the gameplay is like with those. I don't know if I've ever actually used those, but I thought they were cool, so I put them in here. I also put in a few different potions and a few different of the tomes that you can read to learn different spells. So there's actually quite a few pretty valuable things in here. I think one of those potions is like a de-deathify one. So yeah, you can kind of get a head start on magic stuff if you want to play in this house. Had to get a couple of brooms in here for all of your witchy transportation needs. And I also put in a few different planters kind of throughout the house, just so you can grow different like magical herbs or really, anything, of course. But that was kind of the idea. I also put a packet of magical plants on that little work table that I added, just so you've got, again, kind of a head start there. Although, I mean, you will need a lot of simoleons to buy this house, if you're not using any cheats. But that'll pretty much finish the interior of the build. And then I do quite a bit of landscaping, mostly on the roofs of the house. So I did a kind of low-lying plant, I guess. I think they're technically flowers, but I don't know. It looked kind of more like a grass with like little, almost like dandelions or something in it. Because I thought that would make a lot of sense with these roofs. They usually don't have really large plants. It's usually more of a low-lying plant to help absorb water and all of that and keep the house cool. And I also put in some solar panels and one of those like water heater things from For Rent, which I didn't really show, but you can very clearly see those there. And with the solar panels, I also like lifted up that section of the roof so that they're kind of up higher. Yeah, I kind of sped through placing all of the different flower plant things, since even when I was watching it playback during editing, I was like, it's kind of boring to watch me place all of these. So kind of went into like hyperspeed to get all of those placed and reoriented. But yeah, pretty low-lying plants there. Put a couple of hedges kind of around, just to add a little bit more texture, a little bit more height. I think that helped a bit. And then yeah, just doing pretty simple landscaping around the build. I didn't want to go too crazy since I had already done a lot on the different roof sections. But yeah, just put some flowers at the front. And since the door is kind of like off to the right, I kind of, brought this like fake sidewalk over, which I think worked pretty well. I feel like I've seen that in other modern houses where like the door will be kind of like off to one side, but they bring like a sidewalk kind of across and down, which I think worked out pretty well. I also got a full pool and a hot tub in here. So, it'd be a pretty fun house to entertain, guests for sure. And I did a full fence around it, mainly because the lot that I was building on has this like trail that goes all the way around it. So there would be Sims just constantly walking around, which would be, not great if you have a pool. So, yeah, I thought a little bit more privacy would be nice there. And yeah, then I think I do some pool lighting. I also color the pool the same as the house. I imagine they would just use the same material really for everything. And that's kind of what I did throughout the interior of the house. All of the floors and all of the walls are the same. Since that's pretty common in brutalist design, everything is very equal, I guess. Like it's all very much the same. It's kind of the idea behind it. I also had a couple of stretches of blank wall that I put these vines on, which I don't know if that's super accurate necessarily, but yeah, I just kind of wanted to fill them up a little bit, kind of tie it more into the greenery, I guess, around. So yeah, and then I did a bit of terrain painting as usual, just kind of, again, add a little bit more texture to the lot, to the plants, all of that, which I think, always helps for sure. And I know I say this every time, but if you do have any suggestions for builds, please let me know. I would really love to hear it. Even this one from a few months ago, I built. So, although to be fair, that was more on me not seeing the comment. So I can't promise that I will see the comment, but I will certainly try to build, whatever you suggest. So, really love hearing from you all if you have any thoughts or suggestions on builds. But yeah, now I'm just kind of finishing up with the lighting for the lot. And I did quite a few wall lights throughout, which I don't always do, but I don't know, something about them felt a little bit like warmer, a little bit cozier to me than a lot of the ceiling lights that I was looking at. So yeah, I think that kind of helped make the build feel a little bit warmer and just more comfortable to live in. And then for the ceiling lights, I actually used these ones from, gosh, they might actually just be from base game, but the default swatch makes them look very old, like from like the, I don't know, 60s or 70s. But this swatch, I think, made them feel much more modern. And I think that worked really well in here. It's got, since it's a square, it felt, I don't know, just appropriate for the build with all the angles and whatnot. But yeah, I think, lighting can make such a big difference in a build and in real life. So yeah, definitely think it's worth taking the time to think through the kind of lighting that you're using. But that is going to do it for me, and then I will leave you with the tour. I really hope you enjoyed this one. This was a lot of fun to put together. So yeah, if you like the build, please leave a like. That helps a lot, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Thank you so much. Have a great day.